Star Wars 7x7 Season 2 is continuing, so there's a big announcement coming around Revenge of the Sith. It's the 20th anniversary this year. I've been pulling together a few reports for you, and we're going to talk about it today. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. I'm your host, Alan Voivod, and we're talking about Revenge of the Sith and the fact that it's the 20th anniversary of that movie this year, but something happened 10 years ago that was quite the sensation, and it informs what we're going to be talking about today because it also informs what's happening with Revenge of the Sith in its 20th year celebration. So you've probably heard the news that it is coming to theaters, and what is coming to theaters is a special edition. But before we talk about what is going to be different about this special edition, I have to tell you about that thing that happened 10 years ago. So you probably you probably have to have been under a rock if you didn't hear about this one, but there was a lengthy post on Reddit where a user laid out an incredibly complex and very convincing theory that Jar Jar Binks is in fact a Sith Lord and that he was operating behind the scenes to make some terrible things happen. So he wasn't just the clumsy character that was in the wrong place at the wrong time and then make bad decisions that led to the fall of the Empire. No, he was actually much, much worse than that. Now, over the last 10 years, the legend of Darth Jar Jar, as he's referred to online now, has gotten so huge that Lucasfilm finally took notice and actually did something with it. So last year, there was a 4-part special that came out. It was Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, and basically, the gist is that there's a thing that happens and it entirely shakes up the Star Wars galaxy and creates all these odd combinations of things. And one of the things that happens in there is that there is a Darth Jar Jar. But as you know, that's not what a Sith Lord's real name is going to be, right? Like, Sith Lords are named like Darth Plagueis and Darth Tyrannus or Darth Revan or Darth Nihilus, like things like that, right? So if Darth Jar Jar was going to really be a thing, then he would actually have to have his own real Darth name and have a real Darth story. And that is what is happening. So if you were to go to StarWars.com and check out the databank and look for Darth Glmbbasa, yes, Gloombasa, Darth Glmbbasa, well, guess what? That is Darth Jar Jar, who is being inserted into Revenge of the Sith as part of its 20th anniversary update, the special edition situation. Now, here's what I can tell you about the databank entry for Darth Glmbbasa. It says that he's from the lower shadowed swamps of Lake Paunga, sorry about the pronunciation, and that he was a revered Gungan strategist. He was known for his unmatched tactical brilliance and an unshakable sense of loyalty to his people, but beneath his calm and apparently silly demeanor fostered a deep resentment toward the Naboo elites, toward the Jedi, and even his own kind, who dismissed warnings about threats lurking beyond the Naboo system. Now, we know that, of course, Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious, is also kicking around on Naboo, and he has stashed some Sith artifacts on Naboo, but in places where nobody's necessarily looking, including moss-covered ruins on Naboo that, no Theed citizens are ever going to check out. But wouldn't you know it, Jar Jar Binks stumbles upon a Sith holocron buried in an ancient ruin, and it speaks to his wounded pride and offers visions of power, justice, and revenge. The databank entry also reveals that he wields a twin-pronged crimson lightsaber mirroring the shape of the traditional Gungan energy spear, and he wears armor fused from Gungan tech and Sith artifacts. And that his mission is to subjugate Naboo, destroy the Jedi, and forge a galaxy where the, quote, foolish be crushed by the wise. And that's particularly interesting in light of the William Shakespeare-style version of The Phantom Menace that came out many years ago, where in there, Jar Jar is actually depicted not just as a clumsy character, but one who is using clumsiness to kind of disguise his wisdom and his very cutting observations about society and culture. As for the movie itself, well, As Jar Jar Binks, he only appears in a couple of spots, right? Like he's in the Galactic Senate chamber when Palpatine assumes his unlimited power, and he's also at the funeral of Padme Amidala. However, he's going to appear in a couple other places as well, but in his Darth Glmbbasa persona. So one of those places is going to be on Kashyyyk, and we're going to find out that he has actually been the secret leader of the droid army in that failed attack on Kashyyyk. So we get to see him in two moments. So one of them is going to happen right at the beginning of the scenes on Kashyyyk, just as we see Yoda and the Wookiees and the clones consulting from afar in that little command center thing. They're being watched in the tree line by Darth Glmbbasa. And then after the battle's over and the Wookiees have won, you get to see Darth Glmbbasa emerging from a swamp and talking about how the Jedi won't see what's coming. So this happens after the battle, but before Order 66 is given. And if you check out the title card for this episode of the podcast, you'll get to see concept art of what that looks like. So yeah, I'd love to know what you think about that. There's another scene where he's going to show up with no speaking lines or anything like that, but it's kind of a blink and you'll miss it thing. He's going to be at the opera with Palpatine and Anakin. He is in one of the other opera boxes, so as the camera is panning around and showing you all the people who are watching the opera, and Palpatine's telling Anakin about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, yeah, you're going to get to see a glimpse of Darth Glmbbasa hanging out there as well. And last but not least, on Utapau, and yeah, sorry for pronunciation again, and I'll do it again with the Powans. I believe that's the name of the species that's there. So you remember the scene when Obi-Wan shows up and asks to refuel and use their little city place as a base while he searches nearby systems for General Grievous, and the one guy goes, "He's here with thousands of battle droids." He's not talking about Grievous. He's actually talking about Darth Glmbbasa. And you know this because when you see Grievous in the movie, there's not thousands of battle droids around or anything like that, right? There are some, but he's meeting with the Separatist Council, right? And sending them off to Mustafar. So really what's happening is on another level entirely, the Powans are meeting with Darth Glmbbasa. Now, these aren't the ones who are afraid of Grievous. These are actually part of a rogue faction that believe the Jedi are oppressors and think that the rise of the Sith means that balance is being restored. Now, why are they meeting? Well, it turns out that these Powans have found an ancient Sith artifact called a Darkspring relic on Utapau, and they are offering it to Darth Glmbbasa. And Glmbbasa is about to get the darn thing until all heck breaks loose when Obi-Wan takes on General Grievous, and everybody ends up disappearing, and Darth Glmbbasa has to disappear himself as well. Now, there's one other scene that he is rumored to show up in, but I've been trying to track this one down and I can't independently verify this. But on Polis Massa, that's the place where they take Padme to have her babies and where she ultimately passes away, that after the funeral, Jar Jar has sensed that something is different about Padme, like that the body should have had babies, or that there's no idea about what would have happened with the babies. He knew that she was pregnant in Revenge of the Sith, and so he takes his Sith interceptor to Polis Massa to start investigating just what the heck is going on at the medical facility and to try and track the babies down. But again, this is just rumor. I have not been able to confirm whether that is actually part of the movie, the special edition insertions. Now, if you're lucky enough to be going to Star Wars Celebration Japan later this month, you're actually going to get to see some of these scenes at one of the panels there, which will happen then prior to anybody else being able to see them on the big screen. So I'm very excited for you if that's the case and you have tickets to one of those panels. And that's just about everything I know about this special edition situation of Revenge of the Sith, but there's one last thing, which is that, yes, Darth Glmbbasa is the name that they finally settled on to give to Jar Jar Binks, but there was one other name under consideration, and that was Darth April Fool's Ya. And that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.